What is going on, guys? It is week 19 of fantasy hockey, and what that means is we're going to be talking with the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to help you maximize your games, some new power play updates, and some must-add players. Now, in terms of the schedule breakdown, this is very important to understand. There is no NHL hockey until February 22nd. We have the Four Nations going on, so that is how it's going to look. And in terms of the schedule, it's going to depend on your platform. On Yahoo and Fantrax, it is February 10th to March 2nd. So this is a pretty long week, guys. Obviously, no hockey until February 22nd. And then you have it extending into the next week after that. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the schedule and all the teams in a little bit. But I also wanted to mention, if you're on ESPN, this week has already started. I'm pretty sure it's week 18 for ESPN, and it's February 3rd to the 23rd. With that being said, if you're playing fantasy hockey on ESPN, there's going to be only 2 more nights for this week. That's going to be Saturday the 22nd and then Sunday the 23rd. Saturday's a very heavy night, so you're probably not picking up players for this night unless maybe you're picking up a goalie. But for the 23rd, there's a chance you could have some open roster spots. So I just wanted to show you the teams that play on Sunday the 23rd. As you guys can see on the right side of the screen, those are the matchups that are going on Sunday the 23rd. If you have ads left for this week, you can pick up some players from these teams. Obviously, check if you have open roster spots on the 23rd. There's a chance you don't because there's 10 games, and that's a decent amount. So it is considered a heavy night still, but yeah, there could be some good options. I mean, the Flames play the Sharks. Maybe some players on the Flames could be available. Leafs play Chicago. Rangers play the Penguins. These are teams that let in a lot of goals. Devils versus Nashville. Yeah, there's a lot of options here, but I thought I would just include the teams that play on this night so you have that available. With that out of the way, let's talk about the teams with the most off nights from February 10th to March 2nd. As I told you earlier, this is going to be for people that are playing on Yahoo and Fantrax. And as you guys can see on the left side of the screen, these are the nights that are going to have games. Starting on Saturday the 22nd, 14 games, very heavy nights. Sunday's also considered a heavy night. And then for the rest of the nights here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday are certified off nights. And then Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday are pretty heavy nights. Now, in terms of streaming, the best team to stream from for this week is going to be the Los Angeles Kings. They are the only team this week that has 3 off nights, so that's pretty solid. And there's definitely some good streaming options that I'll talk about in a little bit. There's also teams that have 5 games and 2 off nights, which is pretty decent as well. The Stars, the Wild, the Devils, the Rangers, the Leafs, and the Jets. And then we have the Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights having 4 games and 2 off nights. I also wanted to mention that we do have 3 teams that play 6 games this week, which is great, but they only have 1 off night. So it might be hard to stream players from these teams because it's going to be difficult to fit these players into your roster spots. Regardless, if you have the top players from these teams, it's going to be beneficial because you're going to be able to get a lot of games out of them for this week. On the flip side, we have the teams with the least amount of games this week, starting with the Ottawa Senators, the only team that plays 3 times. That's not ideal, guys. Obviously, you know, maximizing your games is very important, trying to get the points or fill your categories. So if you have a lot of players on the Senators, that's just bad luck. Other teams with not the best schedule are going to include the Sabres, the Blue Jackets, the Panthers, the Canadiens, the Flyers, the Islanders, the Lightning, and the Kraken, because they only have 4 games and 0 off nights. If you have a lot of players from those specific teams, you're probably going to be sitting some of them on those heavy nights. So yeah, it's not the best for getting the total amount of games for this week. All right, moving on, let's talk about the easiest and hardest schedule for skaters. Starting with the easiest, these are teams with an above 2.90 opponent goals against average. And these teams are the Jets, the Ducks, the Leafs, the Senators, the Canadiens, and the Detroit Red Wings. Now for the hardest schedule, we have teams with the below 2.65 opponent goals against average. And these teams include the Blues, the Predators, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Oilers, and the Utah Hockey Club. Yes, the Blues and the Predators play 6 times this week, but their schedule is pretty tough, so that is something to consider. Now let's talk about goalies for a second. The easiest schedule and hardest schedule for goalies. Starting with the easiest, we have teams with the below 2.85 opponent goals per game. So there's a chance that the goalies on these teams do pretty good this week. We have the Jets, the Bruins, the Avalanche, the Ducks, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Utah Hockey Club. Now talking about the hardest schedule for goalies, we have teams with an above 3.15 opponent goals per game. And these teams are the Oilers, the Flames, the Blues, the Predators, and the Flyers. There's a chance that the goalies on these teams might underperform this week. Before we talk about the streamers, I quickly want to give a shout out to Drafters Fantasy Sports. It's a best ball and pick 'em platform available in all of Canada, including Ontario and most US states. And guys, for the Super Bowl today, they have a free square. Saquon Barkley over 0.5 rushing yards. You compare that with something else, maximum bet is $10. But if you use promo code / referral code FIREDUP when depositing and when signing up on the app, you get 100% match deposit. So 20 gets you 40, 40 gets you 80, 100 gets you 200. You can do those type of pick'ems, gamble responsibly, of course. And you can also do daily best ball drafts in the NHL where you draft a team, see how they do, potentially win hundreds of dollars in prizes. I'm a big fan of this platform, and there is more info in the pinned comments below. Okay, now let's talk about some streamers for this week. Like I told you, the Kings have the best schedule for off nights, so you're going to want to pick those players up to maximize your games. Obviously, you have the top-heavy options, a guy like Adrian Kempe if he is available in a more shallow league. Then you have Kevin Fiala, who's heating up. Second half Fiala could be a thing once again, getting a lot of ice time, playing very well. Anze Kopitar is still a solid option, even though he's cooled down, the regression hits. And then in terms of some other options, LaFerriere, he's power play 1, decent peripherals, certainly a good option based on roster percentage. Doughty's on power play 1, hasn't produced a lot, but still he could be getting production with this power play deployment and the ice time. And then you have some other deeper league options like Quinton Byfield, Trevor Moore, Philip Deneau, Warren Fogle, etc. There's also options to pick up players on teams that have 5 games and 2 off nights, starting with the Dallas Stars, the Minnesota Wild, and the New Jersey Devils. Lots of options here. Obviously, the top-heavy guys on the Stars, Robertson, Johnson, Duchesne, Hintz, Harley. But you could pick up maybe JB Benn, Mason Marchment, Mikko Granlund, Logan Stankoven, some of those deeper league options. And then with the Wild, you have Boldy, Eriksson Ek, Zuccarello, Rossi, Faber, power play 1 guys. Faber's back on power play 1. And then you could pick up also a guy like Jake Middleton, who puts up really good peripherals. With the Devils, not the best options, but Nico Hischier is returning after the break, or at least he's expected to. Stefan Nason is still power play 1. Timo Meier, you know, he's still a guy that puts up decent peripherals and okay production. Luke Hughes, Dawson Mercer, some of those deeper league options, Tatar, Palat, etc. You also have the Rangers, the Leafs, and the Jets having 5 games and 2 off nights as well. Really depends on your league size in terms of who would be available. With the Rangers and the Leafs and the Jets, they're pretty top heavy, but yeah, take a look at some of these options on the screen. They could be good options for maximizing your games. You also have the Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights, who have 4 games and 2 off nights. Not the best, but those 2 off nights are still solid. With the Avalanche, obviously guys like Lehkonen, Drouin, solid options on power play 1. Vegas, you have a lot of options. Stone, Hurdle, higher roster percentage guys, but Doro Fief is a guy that has a decently low roster percentage. He could be available. He's on power play 1, playing well. And then you have other options like Kolasar if you're in a category league or a Banners league. And yeah, I mean, it just really depends on your league size and your league settings. Lastly, we do have 3 teams that play 6 times this week, which is great, but only 1 off night. And these teams are the Blues, the Penguins, and the Predators, like I said earlier. And these would be the streamers that could be available. Lots of options on the Blues. Guys that are, you know, not the highest roster percentage. Holloway, Shen, Buchnevich, they could be decent options. With the Penguins, a guy like Rust, who should be back, could be a solid option. Bunting, who's getting power play time. With the Predators, maybe a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, Stamkos and Marchessault if you're in a more shallow league. Yeah, the options are here if you want to take a look. Moving on to some power play updates with the Flames. Not necessarily a new update, but what we're seeing still is a top unit of Kadri, Huberdeau, Frost, Coronado, and Weegar. Good for those top guys on the Flames, and obviously lower roster percentage guys as well, like Frost and Coronado. Now with the Carolina Hurricanes, we had a weird mix-up this week. They moved Ghost to power play 2, and they actually moved Svetch to power play 2 earlier on in the week, but he got back on there when Rantanen was out. But yeah, Burns is still power play 1. And that is certainly interesting, right? Good news for Burns, bad news for Ghost. I don't expect this to last, but that's what they're doing. And we're going to have to see what happens when Rantanen is back and healthy. Is Svetch going to be power play 1, or is it going to be Jackson Blake? Because they had Jackson Blake on power play 1 with Rantanen, and they had Svetch and Ghost power play 2, like I said. So we'll see what happens, guys. They're just trying to get something going because his power play has not been good. Moving on to the Blue Jackets, Marchenko is out 6 to 8 weeks. And his replacement is Cole Sillinger. So Sillinger is on power play 1. He sees a bump. Patrick Kane is healthy and back on power play 1 for the Red Wings. LaFerriere is still power play 1 for the Kings. For the Minnesota Wild, Brock Faber is back on power play 1. Don't know how long that's going to last, but certainly good news for him and not so good news for Jared Spurgeon. With the Devils, Nico Hischier should be returning after the break, which is going to bump Palat to power play 2, Hischier to power play 1, obviously. With the Islanders, they're sort of mixing things up, so I don't expect this to stick. But the last time that they ran a power play 1, the last game, it was Adam Boqvist, Tony DeAngelo, Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, and Anthony Duclair. Certainly interesting for some of those players, especially Adam Boqvist. But like I said, I'm expecting them to mix it up quite a bit. With the Rangers, Trocheck is still power play 2. Yes, he's been producing, but this is concerning. This is definitely concerning for his value long term. And that means Kreider, Zibanejad, Miller, Panarin, and Fox are power play 1. With the Senators, Claude Giroux is power play 1 with Josh Norris out. He sees a bump for sure. Even when Norris was back for a couple of games, Giroux was still power play 1, so something to keep an eye out for. With the Penguins, we don't really have an update. Crosby's been injured. Rust was injured last game, so it's hard to say, but I thought I would just mention that. With the Sharks, Mikael Granlund has been traded, obviously. He's on the Stars now, and with him being traded, Will Smith has been bumped up to power play 1. Smith, he's a guy that doesn't put up any peripherals. He's still a rookie, so I wouldn't expect a lot, but he definitely sees a bump with this deployment change. Then with the Tampa Bay Lightning, they have moved back to a top-heavy unit. They're not splitting the units anymore. But with this move, they have Darren Radish on power play 1 and Brandon Hagel on power play 2. Good for Radish, not so good for Hagel. Then for the second batch of power play updates with the Leafs, Nyes is still power play 1. With everyone healthy, Marner's running the point. Riley's on power play 2, so that's good news for Nyes. With Utah Hockey Club, Dylan Guenther is back. What a week for him. And we still have Barrett Hayden on power play 1 with Logan Cooley out. With the Canucks, this one's interesting. Philip Hedl's on power play 1. He's looked pretty good out there. DeBrusk is on power play 1 as well, and Garland is on power play 2. So bumps for Hedl and DeBrusk. Definitely negative for Connor Garland. And then finally, Connor McMichael on the Washington Capitals. He is still power play 1, and that means Chychrun is still power play 2. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some forward ads. Let's start off with some new ads that I haven't talked about, that I didn't talk about last week. And we can talk about Kevin Fiala as one of these guys. Maybe this is the second half activated for Kevin Fiala. I think he has like 13 points since game 41 hit of the season. So, yeah, I mean, the only problem I have with Fiala is that they're running 3 lines. And I don't love his line mates. But what I do like is his ice time. His ice time is the highest it has been of his career. He's shooting the puck. He looks really good out there. And I do think that he is going to have more points in the second half than the first half. So he's certainly worth a look. You also have Ryan Donato, who's been a sneaky option for quite a bit now because he's on power play 1. He gets good ice time and he puts up good peripherals. And obviously he just had a big week at a 4-point night. Not expecting this to last, obviously, in terms of the production, but as long as he's getting this deployment, he's going to have solid weeks and he's going to put up good peripherals. So at his roster percentage, he is absolutely a must-add player. Next, we have Philip Hedl of the Vancouver Canucks. He is currently line 1, power play 1. That is amazing deployment. They run heavy usage for that first unit, so very good news. And he's looked pretty good out there for the Canucks. So yeah, definitely an under-roster player at the current moment and a must-add player. Next, we have Cole Sillinger. Sillinger is a guy who is going to see more ice time with these injuries, and he has replaced Marchenko on power play 1 with Marchenko being out with a broken jaw. So Sillinger could put up some decent production until some of these guys come back. Now I just want to talk about some under-roster players, starting with Dylan Guenther. Guenther, he is a little bit streaky, but you can't deny that this guy has superstar potential. I'm a big fan of Guenther. I think he's going to have some big weeks, and he could single-handedly win you weeks, right? There's going to be some games where he cools down, but he is a lethal threat on that power play, and he's getting better ice time as of late. That's the only thing that I don't love about Guenther, is that Utah likes to roll their lines, but maybe their coach will recognize that this guy's a game breaker, and you could see an ice time bump for the rest of the year. So yeah, big fan of Guenther. Definitely add him. I think his roster percentage should be like 85 to 90% at this point. Next, you have Gabriel Velarde. I do think Velarde is going to cool down a bit. Some of his metrics look a little bit unsustainable, but I still think his roster percentage is pretty low for what he's bringing to the table. Line 1, power play 1, great ice time, etc. So thought I would include him on here. We also got to talk about Arturi Lehkonen. He's line 1, power play 1 with McKinnon and Natchez. The chemistry of that line has looked amazing. He gets elite ice time, good peripherals. I definitely think he is under-rostered at this point. there is that looming threat when Nichushkin comes back that Nichushkin could take Lehkonen off that power play, but maybe he doesn't, right? Nichushkin has not played a lot of games. He's had a lot of injuries, so maybe they keep Lehkonen on this top line in power play 1 for the rest of the year, and that means very solid production will be coming for Lehkonen. So yeah, obviously a big fan of Lehkonen, and we also have to talk about Matt Duchene. Duchene has played amazing as of late. I think he has back-to-back 3-point nights, and the big news for Duchene, which I talked about last week, is that he's now power play 1. They moved Ben off of power play 1 to power play 2, and this is massive for Duchene's value. I mean, a big knock on Duchene from a fantasy perspective is that his ice time wasn't great. He was a power play 2 guy getting like 16 minutes a night, but lately, if you look at his ice time totals with his power play 1 improvements, he's getting like 18, 19 minutes a game. So yeah, I think Duchene, as long as he holds on to power play 1, I think he's going to be really good for the rest of the year. Next, we have Nazem Kadri. I just think his roster percentage is too low. He's playing better. His peripherals are great. And you have Matthew Nyes, who's line 1, power play 1, great peripherals. This is a no-brainer. Attached to Matthews, even strength, still power play 1. It looks like they're going to run that power play 1. So yeah, definitely a big fan, definitely under-rostered. Pavel Dorofeyev, who's power play 1. Even though they took him off for like 1 power play, they put Sod on there. I don't know why they did that, but Dorofeyev is going to be power play 1. And Victor Olsen just got injured, so there is a chance that maybe Dorofeyev gets moved up to line 1 even strength, so that would even further the case for adding Dorofeyev. So yeah, definitely a fan. Then we have Adam Fantilli. He's been on here for the last couple of weeks, but I still want to include him because his ice time has been insane with some of these injuries. And yeah, I mean, he's line 1, power play 1 until Monahan and Marchenko come back, which is not going to be for another, month or two. So yeah, still a fan of Fantilli. Obviously, the injury to Marchenko hurts him because he's going to have less talent around him, but I still think with his ice time, he's an absolute must-add player. Some other under-roster players I want to highlight here include Kent Johnson of the Blue Jackets. Line 1, power play 1, great ice time. Not a peripheral guy, but still, his roster percentage is pretty low for what he's bringing to the table currently. Also, Alex Laferriere, who's back on power play 1, good ice time, solid peripherals. Jake DeBrusk, who's currently line 1, power play 1 with JT Miller gone. He's going to see a bump. Jason Zucker, who's in the top 6 and on power play 1. He's putting up decent production still. I wish Tuck was on that power play instead of Zucker, but still, Zucker's under-rostered with this deployment. There's no question about it. We also have Matt Coronado, who is line 1, power play 1, great ice time, decent peripherals, certainly under-rostered. Connor McMichael, who's now power play 1 over Chychrun. He was dropped. He could be available. If he keeps power play 1, he's going to be solid. Barrett Hayden, who is line 2, power play 1 with Logan Cooley out. Don't know how long Cooley is going to be out, but as long as he's out, Hayden is going to be an underrated option. We also have Morgan Frost, who is line 3 with Sharon Govich and Farabee right now, but regardless of this, he is power play 1, and his ice time has been better on the Flames than the Flyers. Frost currently is averaging like 17 minutes a game, which is pretty solid, and as long as he's power play 1, he will have value. So someone to keep an eye out for in a deeper league. Lastly, 2 more players here. Jackson Blake. Blake has been seeing power play 1 time for some reason. Obviously, with the Rantanen injury, it makes sense. But like I said earlier, he was power play 1 even when everybody was healthy. They moved Svech to power play 2. I don't know how long that's going to last when everyone's healthy, but as of now, there is some potential here as a player who's getting line 1, even strength time, and power play 1 as well. So yeah, he's definitely worth the look in a deeper league. And finally, Will Smith of the San Jose Sharks. Similar to Blake, like he's a guy that's not going to put up great peripherals, and these are rookies, so we have to keep our expectations low. But right now, with Mikko Granlund being gone, they've moved Smith up to power play 1. So he's getting good ice time, he's getting that power play deployment, and he could be solid in a deeper league. Okay, finally, I just wanted to highlight 3 players who should be returning after 4 nations. Nico Hischier, maybe he was dropped in a more shallow league, could be worth a look. We also have Brian Rust. Rust, the injury that he just suffered is supposedly very minor, and he will be back after 4 nations. I still think his roster percentage is too low, in my opinion. He has the deployment, he has the peripherals. He just has to stay healthy. The last player here is Valeri Nichushkin. Now, the only concern I have with Nichushkin is that he's probably going to be second line even strength, and he may be power play 2. They may not move him up to power play 1. But listen, guys, there is that upside if he gets moved up to power play 1 when he's back. And, if he's power play 1, there's a lot of upside and potential. So he could be worth a look because he's been dropped quite a bit. I also want to highlight some shallow league ads. I think Natchez should be rostered in any league at this point. He's only like 94% rostered on Yahoo. this could just be dead leagues. But if you're in like a 4-team league or a 6-team league and he is on the wire, definitely pick him up. And I also think Dylan Larkin is worth it in a more shallow league as well. I think his peripherals have been great. The ice time, new coach has really benefited him. And I think he's going to be great for the rest of the year. Moving on, let's talk about some defenseman ads. I get it. Pretty much all of these guys were in last week's video with the exception of Brent Burns. But in my opinion, these players are still under-rostered in their current situation. So I'm going to repeat these players once again. I'll do it quickly here if you watched last week's video. But Thomas Harley, he's power play 1 with Heiskanen out. He's been playing good. This is a no-brainer. Heiskanen is probably not going to return in the regular season. If he does, it's going to be like the last week or so, which is going to be like past the fantasy playoffs. So I think Harley's a long-term hold at this point. Aaron Ekblad is power play 1, playing better, good peripherals. Seth Jones is power play 1, playing better, good peripherals. Jake Wallman, I still think he's underrated. Great peripherals, amazing blocks. And he's still power play 1, right? Sometimes he gets taken off, but he's been power play 1 for the last week or so. So definitely looking good for him. Then you have Drew Doughty, who's healthy, and he is power play 1 right now. The production hasn't been great since returning, but that was sort of expected, right? Like he broke his ankle. He's going to be rusty, but I still think he is a must-add player, and he's going to pick it up as the season goes on. Then we have Tony DeAngelo. What a great goal last night. Beautiful goal, Tony. I understand you're not supposed to score in your own goalie, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, Tony DeAngelo is a must-add defenseman still because he is power play 1, getting significant ice time and decent peripherals as well. Another must-add defenseman is Darren Radish of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've moved back to a top unit, like an official top unit with heavy usage. And with this, they have Radish power play 1 and Hagel power play 2. So yeah, very good news for Radish. I think as long as he has this deployment, he's going to be very solid. Puts up good peripherals as well. Alexander Romanov's also a guy that I want to talk about on the Islanders. Not a guy that's probably going to produce that good for the rest of the year, but lately he's been getting insane ice time with really good peripherals. So if you're in a category league or a points league that heavily values those, he is worth a look. And then we also have Jackson Lacombe, who's playing better, decent peripherals, good ice time. Brent Burns, who's currently power play 1. But guys, I will say I doubt this lasts. I expect Ghost to get back on there at some point. But still, maybe Burns holds on to it. I don't know. I can't predict the future. And then finally, Adam Boquist. Boquist is power play 1 right now for some reason. Don't know if that's going to last. I'm sure they're going to mix it up, but he is getting better ice time than he did on Florida. He is playing games on the Islanders as opposed to Florida. So, I mean, as long as he's getting power play 1 and he's getting like 18, 19 minutes a game, he could be a solid option in a deeper league. Lastly, I just want to talk about some goalie ads. Anthony Stolarz of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's healthy. He might not get the volume that you want because he's splitting with Wall, but Stolarz has the best stats in the NHL. So sort of a no-brainer, especially if you're in a category league. And then with some other goalies here, Jake Allen, he's still the starting goalie with Markstrom out for probably like another 3 or 4 weeks. But Markstrom should be back soon after the Four Nations, or at least he's expected to. So something to watch out for there. And then we have Joey Decord, who's playing really great, getting good volume with Grubauer gone. Alex Nedeljkovic, who's getting a lot of volume. I know it's the Penguins, and he's going to have some bad games, but a volume is what you want. He's going to bring that. Samuel Ersson, similar. He's on the Flyers. They're tanking, but he's a volume guy that is going to see a lot of games. So he's a guy that could be worth a look. We also have 2 goalies here who I think have too low of a roster percentage at this point. Mackenzie Blackwood on the Avalanche, playing like every game. And then Darcy Kemper as well. He's had a really good season. I don't understand why his roster percentage is like 79% on Yahoo. I don't get it. It is what it is. Could just be dead leagues. And one last goalie here I wanted to mention is Kevin Lankinen of the Vancouver Canucks. Thatcher Demko got injured last game. We don't know if it's a long-term injury. I don't think it is, but as of right now, as I'm recording this, his status is unclear. So if Demko is out or misses significant time, Kevin Lankinen will be the #1 starter on the Canucks. So yeah, if you're in desperate need for a goalie, maybe you want to panic pick up Lankinen. Don't have to do that, but definitely keep an eye out for an update on Demko's injury. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. A buy low, sell high video is going to be coming out very soon, so stay tuned for that. And also a playoff guide. We're going to be going over all the schedules, all the players. It's going to be a pretty in-depth video. That will be coming out during the Four Nations break. So yeah, that's sort of an update for you guys. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.